Hi, folks. Thanks for watching my monologue. As you may have heard, there's been a recent run on guns and ammunition. I just wanted to let you know that Guns Etc. is in a 10,200 square foot building which holds a lot of guns. So Guns Etc. is open and has a lot of product. Or you can go to gunsetc.com. That's gunsetc.com. And if you like my monologue, please subscribe to our channel using 960 The Patriot. Welcome back in our happy May 6th in our ongoing series this week where we are going through important commencement addresses. Again, I'll deliver mine on Friday. I knew I should want to do Alexander Solzhenitsyn's speech to Harvard in 1978. That class, by the way, graduated my teacher Charles Kessler, who now edits the Claremont Review of Books, and Hugh Hewitt, who you all know well. Solzhenitsyn in America was an interesting, really form-shaping thing in the 1970s. He came here first in 1975 to give a speech at the then very anti-communist AFL-CIO organization in Washington, D.C. President Gerry Ford and Henry Kissinger refused to meet him for fear it would upset Leonid Brezhnev, Solzhenitsyn being Brezhnev's greatest intellectual and world political foe. This was, of course, a huge mistake. So much so, I said form shifting, right? That William Buckley in his National Review magazine nearly decided to endorse Jimmy Carter for president over it. And it was the final straw that persuaded Ronald Reagan to suspend his famous 11th commandment of not speaking ill of fellow Republicans and throwing his hat in the ring to challengeth his own house, if you will, and run for the presidency against Gerry Ford, a man of his own party, which he did and came darn near close to winning. What Gerry Ford and Kissinger missed was that the idea of freedom from a prisoner to its opposite was more important than the idea of getting a good deal from Brezhnev, what Ronald Reagan would, in short order, call the focus of evil in our time. But Solzhenitsyn was here, now in America, could not go back to the Soviet Union, and in 1978 gave a commencement address to Harvard. It, too, was form-shifting. Charles Kessler, who was, as I said, in the graduating senior class, listening to it, wrote it up that year in 1978 in National Review. And he wrote it was startling sitting there with the graduating class that expected an alumni who remembered the traditional commencement pieties to hear an address that began, "Harvard's motto is Veritas," and then proceeded, not to a eulogy of Harvard, but to a sobering examination of Veritas, truth. After all, the very idea that there is such a thing as objective truth is not much at home on college campuses these days. Once or twice a year, it's invited into class, but only to be dismissed as dogged superstition or to be debunked as a sort of grand, it's a hard word, Ptolemaic error, Ptolemaic error. Never mind the paradox that the denial of truth has itself to be true. Solzhenitsyn was arresting because he spoke of a truth as if it were true. Nothing Solzhenitsyn said at Harvard, however, was as startling as what his critics thought he had said. In general, they accused him of what the Washington Post, for instance, called, quote, a gross misunderstanding of Western society, close quote, though they were disagreed as to why he had misunderstood it. A few thought him just plain bonkers. James Reston, New York Times, declared that Solzhenitsyn's address, titled A World Split Apart, quote, for all its brilliant passages sounded like the wanderings of a mind split apart, close quote. But most opted for cultural determinism and charitably pronounced Solzhenitsyn to be Russian, incorrigibly Russian. His views, quote, arise from particular religious and political strains remote from Western experience, the Washington Post said. Really imaginative commentators saw a theocrat, and the New York Times proclaimed him a zealot preaching holy war, who, like the 18th century religious enthusiast, believed himself to be in possession of the truth and see errors wherever he looked. Diverse though they are, these critics have one thing in common. They believe themselves to be in the possession of the truth about Solzhenitsyn. In fact, they miss his whole point. The first meaning of the speech's title is easily recognizable as a vision of contemporary politics. Quote, even at a hasty glance, Solzhenitsyn says, which is to say even as journalists and other modern men routinely see things, it is obvious that the two great superpowers oppose each other across the globe. But this political conception reflects only a partial understanding of the world, one that crystallizes in the, quote, illusion that danger may be abolished through successful diplomatic negotiations or by achieving a balance of armed forces. In truth, the split is a much profounder and more alienating one, he said. Its nature begins to become apparent only when one considers how the split is usually expressed in speech. The United States and its philosophical allies proclaim a belief in human rights of the sort embodied in the Declaration of Independence, natural rights, and hold them to be the basis of civil government. Government exists to secure these rights, to protect the conditions of the pursuit of happiness. The Soviet Union and its allies call themselves Marxists. What exactly this means is a sort of question that exercises scholars over lifetimes, but it means at least a rejection of the idea of an unchanging human nature and hence of natural rights. It is understood that Marxists believe in history or dialectical materialism, which is to say they believe that over time man changes his nature, that he creates himself, as it were, through his labor and time, and that the history of this creation through labor is the history of class struggle. There is then a philosophical as well as a political division between West and East, or one might say a moral division, taking into account both the philosophical difference and the nature of its effect on political conduct. The so-called convergence theory, which tends to be widely discussed in the brief stretches between Soviet atrocities, concentrates on the lowest things, common bureaucratic and technological means, common scientific ends, and so misses the higher and essential difference between the U.S. and the USSR. This gulf is not economic, but moral and philosophical. So there is a philosophical split in the modern world, or mutatis mutandis, a split within the world of modern philosophy. A decline in courage, Solzhenitsyn declares, may be the most striking feature which an outside observer notices in the West in our day. The Western world has lost its civic courage. Kessler writes, although this loss is recent and might appear to be adventitious, Solzhenitsyn attributes it to the dynamics of, quote, the prevailing Western view of the world that was born in the Renaissance and found its political expression starting in the Enlightenment, close quote. What distinguished this view of the world was a tremendous burst of human independence and power and a radical new conception of science. For centuries, science had been regarded as essentially contemplative, existing for the sake of understanding. Modern science exists for the sake of human power. When it first burst upon the world, it was arrogant, impatient, ambitious, and frightfully exciting, for it promised revolutionary results. For 2,000 years, philosophers had sought to understand the world. The point now was to master and change it. We quoted Marx saying just that yesterday. Science, designed to serve, in Bacon's shining phrase, for the relief of man's estate, promised affluence. Affluence, a society at once happier and more just, as the motives for injustice were overcome. In the last few decades, Solzhenitsyn wrote, quote, technical and social progress has permitted the realization of such aspirations. The majority of people have been granted well-being to an extent their fathers and grandfathers could not even dream about, an almost unlimited freedom of enjoyment, close quote. However, the conception on material well-being has jeopardized the way to free spiritual development. Man is in danger of not only winning the world, but losing his soul. He may soon discover that without his soul, it is impossible to keep the world if modern society is organized around the paramount natural right of self-preservation, as, for instance, Hobbes, Locke, and Madison understood it to be. Then why should a citizen risk his precious life in defense of common values? When Solzhenitsyn declared that the contemporary West could not serve as a proper model for his country, he touched the love it or leave it nerve of many Americans. Yet he emphasized on the unforgettable afternoon that day in Cambridge that the bitterness he spoke was the bitterness of truth, that had come not from an adversary but from a friend, because enemies never tell men the truth, as Tocqueville wrote. Solzhenitsyn's address at Harvard struck as a reminder of what we see the West as having lost and what it must again, if it is to survive, gain, the trails of our time. His message was part warning, part prophecy, but also part encouragement. Though the, quote, moral heritage of Christian centuries has been attenuated, natural right, natural law neglected, voluntary self-restraint abjured, still Western man may have time to learn again the lessons of self-government. If Solzhenitsyn is more insistent about those lessons than, say, Tocqueville, that is because the forces of evil have begun their decisive offensive, and time for the West is running out. I'm Seth Leibson. We'll be right back.